I'm glad you're curious about improving your relationship with your partner and hopefully getting some long-standing stuck issues resolved. Think of this video as a resource and with some concrete suggestions and tools. The stuck places and fights you guys are having feel awful, and most likely they end up in the same predictable place every time. What's even worse is we can become resigned to the idea that relationships are just miserable when they really don't have to be. To be clear, fighting isn't bad. A good, honest, hard conversation can get couples into a new place, and good fights are a healthy part of intimacy. But chances are, if you clicked on this video, you and your partner are stuck because the fights go nowhere and you don't know how to shift out of them. I tell couples that they need a victory, a win. But first, you have to understand what is going on between you in order to step out of it and experience each other's feelings and issues in a different way. So, here's how to stop having the same fight and deepen your connection. Imagine finding yourself in a new stage of the relationship where long, entrenched issues are behind you both. But first, let's be clear. Long-term unresolved conflict in relationships often result in feeling deeply stuck, having bitter resentments between you. Often there's pessimism about the future of the relationship. That's a big one. And at the end of the day, you can often feel really unseen and unloved. As a side note, unresolved conflict can remind us of aspects of our childhood. Repetitive fights can take us right back to emotional memories of our family of origin if you grew up in dysfunction. If you're curious about that, just check out any of my other videos. All of them focus on the dysfunctional family system and trauma. Let's look at how did conflict get resolved in our families. When it comes to conflict, it's helpful to think about what was modeled for us growing up. How did our parents teach or lead by example when it came to conflict and fights? This question is often laughable when I ask my clients that in session because where do we begin? Some families are flooded with fighting and some don't process emotions in any way, shape, or form. Chances are how we fight is related to how they fought or avoided fighting. Let's look at a very common dysfunctional family pattern to highlight what I mean. You guys will probably recognize it. Let's just call it who wants brownies, or AKA, I baked cookies. Most dysfunctional families live in unresolved conflict cycles, or they create them. Let's look at them in 4 simple stages. Stage 1 is an unresolved issue. Why didn't you take the dog out, or something like that. Step 2 is there's an argument, defenses, there's conflict and fighting. Step 3 is a door slam or silent treatments or a deep disconnection within the family. Stage 4 is when someone feels bad and tries to repair the whole thing and brownies or cookies are made. And then you just repeat the cycle indefinitely. This is a stuck cycle that is more common than you think. The problem is no one takes any initiative to do something different when the cycle repeats itself. As a side note, this cycle and poor repairing is a function of codependency. Codependency is a concept that needs its own video, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, here's my favorite definition of what codependency is. Codependency is waiting for the other person to change without taking any real action. Waiting for someone to change is an unconscious strategy that is about avoiding doing something hard, like couples therapy, divorce, setting boundaries, communicating differently, or getting help of some kind. Dysfunctional parents often avoid doing the hard thing, and instead they wait with magical thinking that the situation will change on its own. Waiting is a strategy that sounds like keep trying, be nice or aggressive, and maybe they'll get it. Sure, making brownies is an action, but it's the wrong action that keeps the family stuck. Let's look at this codependent fight cycle in our own relationships in the present. Imagine a Ferris wheel with you and your partner in one of the carriages at the top. Let's also think about this wheel like it was a clock face with 12, 3, 6, and 9 listed. Similar to the brownies example, here's the cycle. At 12 o'clock, things are going okay, or they're tolerable. and there are unresolved issues in the relationship. These issues sabotage your connection and intimacy with each other. At 3 o'clock, one of you brings up an issue and tries to get it resolved, or they're testing to see if things have changed. At 6 o'clock, your partner responds as they have in previous fights, and things are getting tense or kind of disappointing. At 9 o'clock, the fight is on. There are expressions like, again with this, or why did you have to go there? As a side note, not everybody has a big blowout fight. This cycle can just be a quiet, disappointing shoot-down. Some couples don't actually fight at all about their issues, which is actually harder compared to those who do. So, the point of this video is to focus on what happens to you guys between 9 and 12 o'clock when the cycle resets and you're back at it next time. Between these points in the cycle, there's an opportunity to do something really different for your relationship and take some real action. Between 9 and 12 is the period leading up to the same fight happening again. This part of the cycle can be driven by feelings of doubt, shame, self-righteousness, poor self-esteem, or similar emotions like self-pity. It can also involve some magical thinking and perhaps amnesia in that we think, maybe it'll be different this time. You can be building up to have the same fight the next day or in, say, 6 months. The point is to become aware that, sure, you had a fight, but absolutely nothing has changed about the issues. Here are 3 examples of repetitive fights that couples have. Try to focus on the listed underlying issue as opposed to what the couple is actually fighting about. This example focuses on intimacy as the underlying issue to a fight. At 12 o'clock, one of you is not feeling connected. At 3 o'clock, one of you says, "Hey, you're pretty cool and we need to connect more." At 6 o'clock, the partner puts up some resistance, cites work, hobbies, or needing to put energy into other people. At 9 o'clock, there's a fight or a reaction or a bump. Between 9 and 12, the person who initiated the request possibly wonders if, am I too much or is this normal? Notice the shame and self-doubt. The person who is defensive might be feeling, what more do they want? Or why now? Can't you wait? Notice the self-pity or self-righteousness. This fight is about connection, which is what intimacy is. Childhood trauma is all about the absence of connection. It is very common for couples to get caught in a pattern of one chasing connection and the other running from it. The next example focuses on the underlying issue of trust and control. This one is hard, so get ready. At 12 o'clock, one of you is not trusting your partner and preoccupied with feeling like they are cheating. At 3 o'clock, one of you says, "It feels like you're shady. I need to look at your phone to make sure you're being faithful to me." At 6 o'clock, the partner is now on the spot. They have a reaction or tries to defend, or they hand over their phone or social media account. At 9 o'clock, there's a fight when the initiator isn't satisfied and the defender can't get the initiator to see them as a good person. Between 9 and 12, the initiator does not feel convinced at all. Notice some self-righteousness. And the defender feels persecuted and maybe says, "Why am I always in trouble?" Notice the shame, doubt, or self-pity. Try to not get caught up in whether the person is cheated or not. The control and lack of trust is the bigger thing to focus on in this example. If you have this going on in your relationship, run. Don't walk to couples therapy. Chances are the person who feels cheated on will continuously seek evidence until a deeper sense of trust is established, which takes a lot of work. And chances are the person accused, real or not, will continuously feel suspect, and that also takes a lot of work. The third example will focus on projection. While certainly debatable, I use the term projection to mean that one projects childhood caretakers, usually parents, onto their partner, and the partner isn't seen for who they really are. I do not use the term in the traditional way. If someone grew up with an alcoholic parent, they may be vigilant about their partner's drinking or irresponsible behavior, and they don't recognize how the partner is different from the alcoholic parent. They are projecting the abusive parent onto their partner. Projection, the way I use it, can also mean to have a story in your head about what people think about you. Like, they hate me, or my boss knows how incompetent or fake I am. This is also projecting childhood caretakers onto the person in the present. So, at 12 o'clock, one of you is preoccupied with how the other doesn't do the right thing, paying bills on time, behaves inconsiderably towards others, and in short, you're focused on how your partner doesn't have their stuff together. At 3 o'clock, the person says to their partner, you should really get your together about that thing. At 6 o'clock, the partner who is now on the spot becomes argumentative or ashamed. There's a fight. The initiator withdraws or feels superior. They might have a stance that's like, I'll be more loving when you fix how irresponsible you are. Notice the self-righteousness. The defender can feel guilty or confused. Their stance can be like, what's really the big deal? Or, am I such a mess? Notice possible self-pity or shame. I want to expand on this idea about present issues versus underlying childhood issues. The most common present issues that couples fight about are commitment. Do you fight about taking the next step in the relationship? Parenting. Is the workload unequal? Are there disagreements on parenting style? What about family time? Domestic tasks. Who is doing what or not enough? Being present. Are you really there? Money. Who pays for what and is it balanced? Infidelity. Real or imagined? Addiction. This is huge. Is there progress around an active addiction or at least honesty about it? Work balance. Is there workaholism? Are priorities off? Is there economic situations going on? And lastly, sex and intimacy. This is often the litmus test about whether couples are doing okay or not. We tend to get stuck in trying to resolve situations and dynamics in our relationship, but we miss the major underlying childhood issues that drive them. Here are some examples of unresolved childhood issues. Attachment. Do either of you chase connection or run from it? Shame and rejection. If it's strong, why is it there? Neuroticism. How did you both cope growing up? Empathy. Do you have too much or too little of it? Self-worth. Are you okay with yourself? Perception. Are you a good judge of character, including your own? Maturity. Can you not be defensive and really own your stuff? Here are 3 useful tools to help you guys get out of this 9 to 12 fight cycle. Number 1, couples therapy. I know it's hard, and I also get that it might not be possible, but really think about it and try to make it happen. Check out my video on finding a trauma therapist because all the info in that video is applicable to finding a couples therapist. The person has to be skilled. You can't just find a clinician that's sort of like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Shop around. You both have to be comfortable with the person. It's preferable that the clinician be trauma-informed and aware of the impact of the dysfunctional family system. Number 2, the 1-2-3 process. This tool was developed by my mentor, Amanda Curtin, and this is the most effective couples conflict resolution tool that I know of. The tool essentially brings up the childhood issues running the fighting, and you emotionally connect with compassion to your partner's childhood issues and your own. This cultivates a heart connection and perspective. Next, you address projection. Who does your partner become in context of the issue, or what does the dynamic of the fight remind you of from childhood? For instance, one of you might say, "You're so different than my alcoholic father or my narcissistic mother." The third part of the 1-2-3 is that you work out the present issue. Having cleared some space and establishing compassion, You try to figure out what you can own and what do you need about the present issue. Couples might say, I can be much less hard on you and understanding. That's ownership. When this comes up, but I need to see some effort from you, and that's the person's need. The 1, 2, 3 is more helpful if you're aware of your childhood issues, and if not, hopefully a good therapist can help you with that. Keep in mind, it's tricky to figure out what those childhood issues are. Both people have to be motivated to do the 1, 2, 3, and it's best to be done either in the middle of a fight or actually right after a fight to stop that cycle. And down the road, I'm hoping to do a whole other separate video on the 1, 2, 3 process that gets more into it. Number 3, learn about how you guys fight and then do the opposite. Let's look at conflict on a spectrum. On the left, we have conflict avoidant, and on the right, we have initiate conflict. Think about where do you and your partner fall on this spectrum. Here's what I mean. Somewhere on the right side, one person has to say it. Let's say an issue to be brought up, they are just itching to get something resolved or can't stop themselves from saying it. Over on the left, one person can't say it or it's hard for them to say it. Back to the right, one person looks for faults. Over on the left, one person is looking to make things okay. On the far end of the right, one person is intense and overpowers. They need to be right. This is what you'll hear me describe as going into lawyer mode. Apologies if any of you guys are lawyers, but the person has built an airtight case for how their partner is wrong, and their behavior tends to be overpowering and unloving in fight, and you usually can't get a word in. This is unhealthy, but it's not uncommon. On the other end of the spectrum is the person who shuts down. They are the person who waits for the storm to pass. They do not believe in their own empowerment and is perhaps desperate for things to be okay. This behavior tends to be abandoning of self in the partner, and it comes across as unloving due to giving up any involvement or responsibility in the issue. Or actually, the person owns too much and overly apologizes for the issue, which is just another way to not be real. This is unhealthy, but not uncommon. As a side note, these strategies tend to further frustrate the person who tends to go into lawyer mode and things get worse. Neither sides of the spectrum are healthy. Becoming aware of how you fight is golden because it's the beginning of having some control over self and starts you on the path to maturity and connection. Couples are often paired at the other ends of this spectrum. It's just some kind of phenomenon, and that people find themselves with the opposite to your fighting style. Coming back to replicating childhood, fighters tend to be attracted to those who shut down, and vice versa. However, this is not set in stone, as some couples both shut down. This makes it pretty hard for one of them to take a risk about any kind of conflict. Another pattern is for two people to be both initiators of conflict. This means it can become volatile and there is a high frequency to fighting. Where do you and your partner lie on this spectrum? And would you both agree to your own style of fighting? These are not easy things to admit to, but it is the beginning of making progress. So I want to challenge you guys to think about whether you and your partner are on this 9 to 12 cycle and building up to your next fight. And I want to encourage you to try 1 or 2 of the tools listed in the video and really try to do something different in the relationship. Good luck, and I hope that this was helpful. If you guys have any questions about the video itself, I'm going to put up some notes in the description, as well as a link to the 1, 2, 3 process that you guys can just pull from my website and print off as a PDF. That's probably the most important tool that's pretty much listed in the video, I believe. And as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification for more videos in the future. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.